With Congress now back in session, there's a lot on their plates that they'll be tackling in the next few weeks. But among those items that must pass is the National Defense Authorization Act. This is a piece of legislation, of course, that provides funding for the U.S. military. That's why it's a must-pass bill. Well, this week, the Senate is taking up their version of the NDAA, and next week, probably, the House will be taking up their version. However, this year, both versions, the House and the Senate, expand funding for in vitro fertilization, IVF. Now, this has long been a pet project of the Democrats, but this year it appears like many Republicans are beginning to get on board with it as well. So what's the reason for that, and what's the problem with it all? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Quena Gonzalez. He's a Senior Director of Government Affairs here at the Family Research Council. Quena, thanks for joining me. Great to see you again.
It's good to be with you, Jody.
All right, the NDAA. Goodness, this is one of those bills. It's about pay raises for our military service members. It's about funding the military. Why in the world are we talking about IVF in the NDAA?
Well, you alluded to it before the break and right after, Jody. Democrats have been looking for a long time for must-pass legislation that they can use to expand taxpayer-funded in vitro fertilization, or IVF, by throwing that into must-pass legislation. And this year it looks like they are succeeding in getting some Republicans to come along with them and inject this into a military bill that really has nothing to do with that issue.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And of course, we here at Family Research Council, we're all about families, we're all about babies, we're all about this type of thing. But what are the problems? I think this is an important discussion. The problems and the concerns with IVF.
Yeah, Family Research Council is all about babies. We love children. And the purported purpose of IVF is to create children, to help couples who are infertile reproduce, have children of their own. And that's how it's billed, that's how it's advertised. But that's not what IVF actually is in practice many times. And so when we look at government funding of something, anything that the government funds, we get more of. And so, as you know, Jody, government funds often come with strings. You can do this, you can't do that. This is really a blank check to an industry that, again, sells, will give you a live baby, and doesn't talk about some of the problems. Some of the problems include all of the children who are conceived and created but discarded or perpetually frozen along the way. Some are discarded, some are left in perpetually cryogenically frozen state. Some are donated for science and research. They're researched upon. Most of the children created through IVF never reach birth. But there are other problems as well. Expanding IVF, which we would do by government funding of it, opens up a whole new world of horrors without any sort of this industry is not well regulated. And so already we've had people experiment with putting together human and animal embryos to create hybrids. This has already happened. Live embryos that are hybrid animal-humans, and there's nothing in this bill that would guard against things like that. There are others that I could list. And then the last thing I would say is that it really fails IVF to address the underlying issues, the health issues that lead to infertility. And so often couples go through this process at great expense because they greatly desire to have children, and they have maybe one child after repeated attempts and after often many embryos have been lost, whereas there are better alternatives for treating infertility.
Okay, so where does this stand in the Senate right now? They're dealing with it this week. We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I do want to give our viewers and listeners the Capitol switchboard number. So if you're watching or listening, get a pen and paper out. We're going to give you a number here in just a few moments. But Quena, where do things stand right now in the Senate?
Well, the NDAA needs to pass by the end of the month, or some sort of extension that would extend last year's funding while they continue to work on it. And so the Senate is working really hard to pass it this week or maybe early next. The House will take up their version next week. But as you said, both the House and the Senate have different but similar provisions regarding IVF. And so we're very concerned that this could end up in the final bill.
Okay, so what can our viewers and listeners do to help?
It's really important. Members of Congress that we have been speaking to for the past several weeks are not aware of this issue and are a little horrified when we tell them about what some of these problems are, but they need to hear from their constituents. So the easiest thing that people can do is call the Capitol Switchboard, and right now, because the bill is moving in the Senate, ask for your senators. Every state has 2 senators. Ask for yours. The Capitol Switchboard operator will transfer you to that office. You can speak to a staff member or leave a message. Be polite, give your name, your address, and state your opposition to including expanded taxpayer funding of IVF in the National Defense Authorization Act.
And I will also say, we here at FRC, we have Fast Facts, which just deals with concerns with expanding IVF in the NDAA, and you can check that out for more info at frc.org/IVF in NDAA. So check those out for more information and call the switchboard ASAP. All right, Quena Gonzalez, FRC's Senior Director of Government Affairs, always an honor to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jody.